Hello and welcome back once again to Get Cookin'. So we're back in the kitchen today and we're going to be making something that honestly I've never tried to make before, but I really want some, and I looked up a recipe online and we're going to try it and see how it turns out. So today we are making donuts. Yep, just plain old-fashioned everyday donuts. I was just going to make one type of donut, but I think depending on how much dough I have by the end of this, I might make a couple different kinds. I'm not 100% sure yet, but wait and see. And until then, we're going to flip this camera around. I'm going to show you the basic ingredients you're going to need to make homemade donuts. Okay, so the first item up we're going to need for our donuts is going to be some all-purpose flour. And I do got a little bit left over in this other bag here that I'm going to use up first. But we got our big bag because we're going to need approximately 4 cups of this. The recipe I'm going off of actually says 4.5 cups, but it didn't say whether all of that was supposed to go into the recipe or if some of it was going to be for rolling out the dough. Other recipes I looked at only used 4 cups, so I'm going to go with 4 cups and assume the other half cup was for rolling. So we're going to need about 4 cups to 4.5 cups. Second item we're going to need is some baking powder and some regular good old salt, some sugar. As you guys have seen before, I keep my sugar in containers. I need a cup. I don't know if there's a cup left in here, but I do got this other bag of granulated sugar that I didn't know I had. So hopefully I got enough to do all that. If not, then I think there's some sugar in a container somewhere that my mom uses for coffee that I can use. We're also going to need a couple eggs, not this many, just I think 2. I have to look at the recipe, but only a couple. Some butter, again, not a whole tub of it, just a little bit. If you got a stick, it works. Going to need some milk. I think it's a cup of milk. We're going to need some vanilla extract. And since we're going to be deep frying these, we're going to need some oil. And I also got some cinnamon that I'm going to top some of them with later if my other idea works out. And I also have a thermometer. This is a meat thermometer, so it's not actually what's supposed to be used for this. But we need to make sure the oil temperature is up to heat before we put the donuts in. So I'm going to hope I can test the oil with this thermometer without destroying it. This only goes up to 220 degrees and we need roughly 3 to 350, somewhere in there. If you have a deep fryer with a controller on it, go ahead and use that. I'm going to be frying these in a pan because I don't think I have enough oil to fill my deep fryer. So we're going to try this out, see how it works, and we'll go from there. Alright, so those are all the ingredients we're going to need. Now let's start assembling everything. Alright, so I don't know how well this is going to work, but I'm going to try and use this giant mixer today. You can mix all this by hand, but I'm kind of lazy today and I'm in a hurry and want to get this done. So we're going to try to use this mixer. I'm going to be using my whisking attachment here. Because we're going to be whisking first, and then I will switch over to some of the other attachments such as the paddle and later on maybe even the dough hook, because we are going to be making a dough out of this. So the first thing the recipe says is we need our 1 cup of sugar. So let me grab a measuring cup. So this is just under the lip, so I think that's good enough for a cup. I'll save the granulated sugar for what I'm going to be making later. And then the next item, it says we need 2 eggs. So we're going to get out 2 eggs and crack those right into the bowl. So we need 1 egg, just like that. And then we need another egg, just like that. Hopefully we didn't get any shelly pieces in there. And that is all we're going to need. Alright, so now it says to again attach our whisk attachment, or do this with a normal whisk in a bowl. This is probably going to be fairly loud, so I might mute the audio here, but basically you want to drop that down. I'm going to lock that into position, and we're just going to turn this on slow to whisk. And maybe a little bit faster. You just want to mix all that together until it's light and fluffy. Alright, that looks good. We're going to turn that off. And as you can see, it's kind of mixed together, nice and fluffy looking. You know, I'm going to keep this attachment on here for right now because I'm going to need it again for a few minutes. But we're going to move on to the next step. Alright, so the next item it says is 2 tablespoons of butter melted. Normally, like I said, if you got a stick of butter, just cut off where the line says 2 tablespoons. I'm just going to grab a couple tablespoons of my regular butter here, which is already kind of melty because it's been out on the counter. And I'm just going to say that's 1. It'll melt easily enough as it mixes. I don't really need to melt it. And there's 2. Butter's done. All right. Next we're going to add 1 cup of milk. So we got our measuring cup again. And we're going to pour in 1 cup of milk just like that. And it says 1 tablespoon of vanilla, which seems like a lot of vanilla to me, but whatever. So we're going to pour in, again, I would normally use my measuring tablespoon for this and not this one, but I'm trying to get this done. So there we go, 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Now it said to gradually add that in, but I'm just going to put it all in and just, like I said, slowly mix it together until it's all incorporated. Alright, so while our butter continues to be mixed in, we're going to put together our dry ingredients into a mixing bowl. So again, the first item we're going to need is 4 cups of flour. You know, I'm going to save this little tiny bag for my rolling, and I'm just going to do the flour out of the big bag. So here we got our big bag of flour. So there's 1, 2, try not to get it all over me and all over the floor. 3, and that's 4. Seems like a lot, but it'll work. Alright, so that's all of our flour. What else do we need? We already did the sugar. 4 tablespoons of baking powder. Alright, and for this step I am going to actually get out my measuring spoons instead, because I need 4 tablespoons of our baking powder. And this spoon is a lot easier to get in here than my normal sized tablespoons. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4. Alright, so there's that. Get that incorporated. And a half a tablespoon, which I have right here, of our salt. Seems like a lot of salt, but that is a lot of flour, so boom, there we go. And I believe that is all of our dry ingredients. Now we're just going to give this a little stir with our finger just to incorporate all the salt and baking soda down into the flour. And now we're ready to move on to our next step. Alright, so we're back over here to our mixer. I don't think we're getting anywhere with this butter, but it'll work out better as we continue to incorporate the flour. So now we're going to add, actually I'm going to switch paddles here. I'm going to get rid of this one. Maybe. Nothing wants to work today. There we go. So we're going to get rid of that. And we're going to switch over to our mixing paddle. Like I said, I do got a dough hook since I'm technically making dough, but we're not going to use that right now. Actually, before I do that, I want to add in, I'm going to add this in a cup at a time. So we're going to take 1 cup of our flour and pour it in like that. And we're going to give that a mix, and then we'll add another cup and then another cup until it's all gone. So locking that back in there. And let's turn this on again on slow, on low, whatever you want to call it. And once it starts to come together, I'll switch over to the dough hook because this will start to stick into this thing, into the paddle. Right, so as it starts to incorporate like that, I'm going to sneak on over here on the side and put in another cup of flour. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me do it on this side so you can see. Just going to sneak another cup in there. Let that incorporate. At this point I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Just kind of pull away from the sides. Now we're going to add in another cup. Now you can hear it start to slow down there. So I'm going to do that just to kind of pull away from the sides. And now what I'm actually going to do is turn this off. I'm going to pull this up out of here, and I'm going to switch over to the dough hook instead. So you want to try and get as much of this doughy stuff off of this paddle as we can. If you can't get all of it, don't panic, it's fine. Just get as much of it off as you can. I probably should use the dough hook from the beginning, but I didn't, did I? Come on, get off my fingers. Alright. So that's about as much I'm going to be able to get off of that. So now I'm going to attach my dough hook here. And I got flour all over this thing, so I'm going to have to clean that up later. Actually, before I add that on, I'm just going to go ahead and dump in the rest of my flour. Just like that. Now, we'll attach our dough hook. Again, if you don't have one of these big fancy machines, do it by hand. You're not going to hurt anything. It might take a little while longer to whisk it all together, but it'll be fine. So we're going to put it on about a 2 for right now and just let it kind of pull everything together. Bump it up a little bit. Careful, you don't want flour flying everywhere. And you can see it's starting to beat up the dough a little bit. Actually, you can't really see it that well, can you? Let me see if I can pull you down. Get right up in there. How about that? So you can see it's starting to pull everything together. I'm going to turn it up a little bit more to pull away from the sides. I'm going to turn that off for a minute. Raise it up out of there. And I want to scrape down these sides a little bit. So we're going to get our rubber spatula and just push all that flour down off the walls. Like so. Just so it can get all incorporated and get everything it needs in there. If you don't have a rubber spatula, use a normal one or a spoon or something. Just be careful because this is a glass dish and you don't want to break it. Put our meat hook back down in there and re-engage. And just let it beat it up for a little while. I think that's about as good as we're going to get it. So we're going to unlock that. As you can see, there's not, oh, you can't really see it anymore. As you can see, there's not really a whole lot sticking to the hook. Just that little bit there. So I think that's about as close as we're going to get to where we want to be. Now, we got to get it out of this bowl. So I'm going to get everything cleaned up, get this rolled out of the bowl onto a surface, and then we'll get on to the next step. Alright, so now we're over here to our counter space. This is my large cutting board just so I don't make a mess all over my counter. And what we want to do, sprinkle a little bit of flour all over this. Like so. Give it a nice rub around. Make sure we got a nice floured surface here. Try not to get it everywhere if you can avoid it. We're going to get a little bit of flour onto our hands. And we're going to try to carefully pull all this dough out of this bowl. Now some of you may be asking, like, where's the yeast and all that? This recipe doesn't require yeast. I know a lot of donut recipes do. You can make the yeasty recipes if you want. I'm trying to make one without having to go buy yeast for a special occasion. And this is what we're going to end up with. Alright, so set that aside. And now we just kind of want to fold all this extra flour into our dough so it's not so tacky. Kind of like the other day when I was making those pastry things and it was really kind of doughy and all that. You basically just want that same thing where you're not really dealing with a lot of... See, look, this isn't tacky at all. Even if I stick my finger all the way through it, no tack. That's actually a very good dough right there. Probably one of the best doughs I've ever made. So I'm going to work it for a little bit just to make sure it doesn't return to tackiness. If it does, it's getting there a little bit, so give it another little roll in the flour and work that flour in again. Again, just kneading it. You want to do the push it out, flip it over, push it out, flip it over thing like a lot of people do. Go for it. I don't care. Alright, so you don't want your dough to be too firm or too tough. I think that's pretty good. There's our donut. No. Alright. So now that we have this, and if it's too soft or anything like that, throw it in the fridge for like an hour, it'll be fine. For the most part, you're not going to have to do that. Alright, so let me spread this around a little bit more, just so I got a fairly clear space in the center here. Pop that there, and now we want to basically kind of pull it in half, like so. I'm going to try and show you guys this again. Basically, I powdered my surface, or floured my surface I should say. I pulled all the dough out of the mixer onto here, gave it a nice roll up in the flour so it's not all tacky. As you can see, I'm holding it no problem. I separated out into 4 balls about this size. Then you take the ball, drop it there. Going to make sure our rolling pin here has some flour on it. Now we're just going to roll this out like so. Hopefully I won't need this part of the video because it's already in the phone, maybe. But yeah, not sure what the hell was going on with the phone when I tried to offload things earlier. I really need to get a better camera, but this has been working so well for this, I really didn't want to switch, but whatever. Alright, so once you got it rolled out, you want it to still be a little bit thick, not too thin. Then you just want to take a cookie cutter. I don't have a cookie cutter, so I'm using this cup. You just want to give it a press and a twist, and then just set it aside on a plate like so. Then you do that until you used up the majority of the dough. Then you roll your dough back into a ball and roll out a few more of them, again remembering to powder your surface each time. So for the first rollout you'll get about 4, the second rollout you'll probably get 2 more, and then I use the excess to make the little twist up ones. So then we're just going to mash this back into a ball the best we can. It does have more flour in it now, so it is a little bit harder to work with. As you can see, it doesn't want to reincorporate that well. That's fine. Put it down. We're going to roll it back out. Alright, that should be good. Now we should be able to get maybe 2 out of this if I'm lucky. There's 1. And can I get a second one? No. I can, but I gotta re-roll it. Make sure you reflour all your surfaces every couple of seconds just to make sure nothing's sticking to anything. Alright. Should be able to get 1 more there. And I could probably get actually 1 more out of that if I re-rolled it 1 more time. And now we're sticking. If you stick, just get a little flat thing like this and kind of shovel it off of there. It'll flatten a little bit, but that's fine. And now what we're going to do, since we have this leftovers, reflour our surface, and we're just going to roll this between our hands until it forms a little nub, like so. Now you're just going to roll it all the way down. And if you don't want to do this, you just want to mix this little bit of dough back in with the other dough, go for it. It ain't gonna hurt anything. But this is how I make the twist ups in case you missed them earlier. You get it like that, and you just kind of want to roll it and stretch it out as you go. Push it down in the center first. Then you just kind of want to, as you roll it, why are you flattening so bad? There we go. You just kind of want to pull it apart with your hands to kind of space it out. Work all that center fat to the edges. About like that. Now what you want to do is as you roll it, push one hand in this direction and pull your other hand back in that direction. So you get a little bit of a tensional twist, and then you're just going to pick it up. As you can see, it already naturally started to twist. Just going to give it about 3 to 4 twists, and then pinch the end. And that's going to be our next twist up. Now that one does have quite a bit more flour in it, but there you go. So now we're going to pop these into the heat, roll out this last one, do that batch, and then I'll show you how to top these. Alright, so first thing we want to do is take our nice deep welled pan. You want something with quite a bit of depth in it because you're going to need to be able to submerge the donuts in the oil. So we're going to take that, we're going to turn it to a high heat. I'm going to put mine on about 8. I don't want it all the way up on high because I don't want to burn the oil. And then I don't know exactly how much we're going to need. Basically, if you can see these 2 screws right here that hold the handle on, I think what we want to be just about under that. Hopefully I have enough oil here. Basically, like I said, you want enough that you can submerge the donuts. And you know what? Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and use this whole bottle because I can actually save it back in this bottle afterwards and use it for my deep fryer later. So that's not quite where I wanted to be with it, but I think that'll be enough. I don't know how well you can see how far my pinky went into it there, but that should be enough to submerge a donut in. Alright, and like I said, we can save this oil and reuse it for something else as long as it doesn't get too dirtied. Alright, I don't know if this is working or not. Apparently something's going on with this phone. It keeps messing up. But anyway, hopefully it's recording now and you guys can see this. Otherwise I have to find a new camera and redo this whole thing. So our oil is back up to temperature. Alright, so once again, our oil is up to heat. We're going to take our donuts that we made and we're going to gently drop anywhere from 3 to 4 into the pan. You don't want to overcrowd them, you want to give them space to fully cook out. So we're going to do 4 at a time. Hopefully we're still recording. And you just want to let them submerge, and then when they come up, they'll brown a little bit around the edge. When they brown a little bit, give them a turn. Like I said, it'd be 3 to 4 minutes per donut. So this one's starting to brown, so we're going to flip him over. Actually going to bump our heat back up just a touch because these are lightening up quite a bit now. So we're going to give him a flip. These ones will be flipped again on each side just because they're a little bit light. As you can see, these ones were slightly darker than these 2 were. And after a minute or so, give them another flip. I don't know what is going on with this phone. Now it's wanting me to enter a password and stuff. Earlier it lost a whole segment that I know it was recording, but when I stopped the recording there was like a whole big segment missing. And then when I went to get it all reset to film this part, it didn't want to record anything. I finally got to record, then it stopped apparently in the middle of a session. So I'm going to have to piece these together the best I can, unfortunately. I'm going to turn my heat back up a little bit more. Again, we want to keep that nice bubble, but not too much. And we want them to brown ever so slightly, not too dark. But you don't want them to burn. I think our first ones, the temperature was a bit high. Probably don't even need to turn them quite as many times as I'm doing here. I'm just trying to get an idea of where they're at on each side. For example, here's one of the ones I made earlier. As you can see, it's slightly darker than these, and it is still very hot. Ouch. Alright. So we're going to give these another quick flip, if I can do it. So another second or two here on this side, and then these will be ready to come out. And all I'm doing So as you can see, I got a plate over here with a paper towel on it. I'm just moving them out of the oil onto the paper towel to absorb the excess oil and allow them to cool. Alright, so these ones look like they're pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and take these out. Put them onto the plate with the others. And then we'll just drop in our next few. So I got one here. And one here. And I'm going to drop in one of our twisty ones and see how these do. Alright, and then I think I had my heat down too low because these aren't nearly cooking quite as quick as the first few did. But they're still turning out looking pretty good. So if they take a few extra minutes, they take a few extra minutes. Alright, so I'm going to finish browning these up, and once they're all done, I'm going to show you how we're going to top these. I'm not sure what I want to do for topping yet. I have two ideas that I want to run through, and based on the way these are looking, I think I'm going to go with one over the other. So I'm going to finish these up, and we will see you guys in a few minutes. Alright, boys and girls, I think I got the camera problems figured out finally. So I went through and counted how many donuts I ended up with, and unfortunately I already ate one of the twists before I put any seasoning on it, or topping I should say, not seasoning. So I counted out how many I had, and I have basically 26 plus 2 of the twists, so that's enough to do 13 plus a twist each on the toppings I was going to do. So I think I'm going to try and do both toppings. I'm not sure how well they're going to work out, but we're going to try it. So let's get started on that. So this first plate here will be our first topping. Alright, so now what we want is a bag of some sort. It can be just a regular brown sandwich bag if that's what you got. Or in this case, since I don't have one of those, I'm going to use one of these Ziploc bags. And then we're going to get our tablespoon measuring spoon, or your regular tablespoon if you want, it doesn't really matter. And you're going to get 1, 2, 3, about 4, that was maybe closer to 3.5 tablespoons of sugar. Then we want 1 tablespoon of our cinnamon. Again, we're going to try and keep the bag open here so we don't get this all over the place. Now the recipe I'm going off of says 2 tablespoons of sugar to 1/2 tablespoon of cinnamon. So I'm just doubling it up and doing 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, so that would be 1/2 and 1/2, which would be 4 tablespoons of sugar. Alright, I'm going to seal this up best you can. Give it a shake to kind of incorporate everything. Alright, now you take this and you drop a few of your donuts inside. 1, 2, 3, we'll do 4. Seal it up. Make sure it's nice and sealed, and I'm just going to give this a toss around like so. Now I need another plate to put the ones that are finished on. Actually, I will use this since I already have it out. So you just pull out your donut. There you have it, nicely coated. Sorry, I'm actually eating one of the donuts. Then you throw in your next couple. Seal it up and toss it again. And because of how many donuts I have, that's why I went double the amount on the cinnamon and sugar. Actually, I may have put too much cinnamon in this. I think she only said 1/2 teaspoon. I might have just screwed all these up. Oh well, ain't gonna hurt anything, right? So we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4 more. Make sure they're nice and sealed. Give them a toss around. so. 1, 2, oops, 3, 4, and then my final one and my twist up. And give them a tumble in the dryer. So there is one. Our twist up broke apart. Oh well. Just means now we have 2 donuts, right? Alright, so there's our first topping. Done. I don't know why these ones got so dark, but these ones are closer to what we were going for. Those probably have quite a bit of cinnamon on them, but that's alright. It ain't gonna kill you. I just ate a little bit off my hand, it's fine. Alright, so that's topping number 1. Let me clean up this stuff and I'll show you topping number 2 if it works out. Alright guys, so for this next topping, I got out my old Whirligig here. Haven't used this thing in forever, but I'm going to try and use it because I need icing sugar or powdered sugar, and I don't have any, so I'm going to show you guys how to make some. All you do is grind up regular old granulated sugar until it's a fine powder. So for this, I'm going to need, it says 3 cups, so I'm probably going to do a cup at a time here, so here's half a cup. And we'll do one more. I might not have enough for this. But yeah, so that's just about a cup there. So we're going to lock our lid back in place, however it goes on there. And we're going to, there we go. Sorry, I got a bad plug over here. Alright. So basically you just want to pulse your sugar in your grinder here. It doesn't take too much, just a little bit of grinding. Alright, now if we open this, that should be fairly powdery. Yep. I probably could have powdered it a little bit more, but I'm having trouble with this plug. So we're just going to take that out somehow, I think like that. And we're just going to dump it into a bowl. And we're going to do this as many more times as we can because I need a total of 3 cups, which will probably use up the rest of this bag of sugar, but that's okay because I can get more tomorrow. So there's another half, and you can see the difference in texture, well, sort of. That's granulated and the other is powdered. Alright, just lock this back in, like so. And I gotta hold everything together while I do it. Oops. And I am letting off the trigger just to pulse it, let everything settle back down so you're actually breaking up all the little crystals of sugar. And once in a while it unlocks itself and then it doesn't want to run. This thing's got some torque to it. Alright, so that's my second one. Gonna unlock that. And lift this out of here like so. Dump that in there. And I'm just going to dump whatever's left in this bag in here because I don't think it's quite enough to make what I want, but it'll be close. Yeah. So there's only about a little over half a cup left in there. So I got 2.5 cups out of the 3 that I need. Like I said, I could actually, there is more sugar in the house, but I've already used up quite a bit. So I don't want to use it all up. So now we're going to attempt this again, get it around here to where I can hold it and push the button at the same time. Push in the plug. Give that a couple quick pulses. They usually say about pulse for 20 to 30 seconds to turn granulated sugar into powdered sugar. It doesn't really even take that long. 20 seconds is probably more than enough. Alright. This just gives me more dishes I gotta clean anyway, right? Alright, so there we have 2.5 cups instead of our 3 of powdered sugar. And 1 more dish to wash. So as you can see now, it is a lot more powdery and less granulated than it was before. Alright, and then the next ingredient, it calls for salt. I don't really see what the purpose of putting salt in this is. So the next step says half a teaspoon of vanilla, but I'm actually going to go with a full teaspoon, I think. Just give it a little bit more flavor. So there's that. And then it says half a cup of water. So there's that. Now we're going to grab our whisk, and we're going to do this one by hand. And we're just going to stir this until it thins out to a nice glaze. You don't want it too thin, but you don't want it too thick either. You just want all the sugar kind of broken up. So as you can see, it's kind of soupy, but not too bad. Alright, now let's move back over to the other counter. So now you guys can actually see what's going on here. Again, give our glaze a little bit of a stir. Like so. Now all we're going to do is take our donuts and dunk them. Turn them, dunk them. Pull them out, put them on a plate, let them sit. The glaze will thicken as it stands. Just give them a little dunk down, pull them right out. I'm just going to do this with all of them. Then we want to let these stand with the glaze on them for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so, just so the glaze has time to sit up and harden. And we're just going to keep doing this until all our donuts are gone or until all our glaze is used up. I'm glad it is actually absorbing quite a bit of the glaze, because I would feel really bad if I wasted that much sugar just to do a couple of these and then still have a ton left over. And of course our twist up, give that a couple rolls around just to make sure it's got an even coating. And then out onto the plate. There we go. So those are glazed. We're going to let these sit for about 10 minutes, and then we'll be back to show you the final product and test them out. Alright boys and girls, so in front of me are our finished donuts. Again, here are our cinnamon sugar sprinkled ones, and here are delicious glazed ones. Now, I'm going to try one of each, let you know what I think. I did try one, actually two earlier that weren't topped at all. They were good. They kind of tasted just like your normal, like when you buy that box of donuts and they got just the regular plain old donuts in there. They were like that, but a little more crisp, I guess. They weren't quite as soft, but they were soft inside. They were just kind of a little stiffer on the outside. So we're going to try one of our cinnamon sugar ones first. This is the twist one that happened to break apart, unfortunately, but it's still edible, so let's take a bite and see what we think of the cinnamon sugar one. Cheers. That's damn good. The texture of it's a little bit more crunchy than like a normal store-bought donut, because mine doesn't have all those preservatives in it to keep it soft. These are non-yeast, so of course they're going to be a little bit stiffer than yeast dough. Plus, as many times I re-rolled it, the dough did start to get a little bit tougher to work with, so especially towards the end on these twist ones, they're going to be a little bit firmer. The other ones will probably be fine. Good balance of cinnamon and sugar. It's not too heavy on either one. Other than the slightly crunchier texture, they're about the same as the donut you'll get in the store. Tastes exactly the same, just has some crunch to it. Alright, so now we're going to try one of our glazed ones. The The person who I got the glaze recipe from didn't say the glaze needed to be heated or anything. He just showed himself mixing it up like that. I think he let it sit for a little while he was frying the donuts and then dipped it in afterwards, so it had a little bit of time to thicken. Mine wasn't really that thick, so it kind of all ran off and settled in the bottom. But I think they absorbed enough of it. There's a little bit of powdered sugar on them, or crystallized sugar, whatever you want to call it. So let's take a bite of our other twist and see how the glaze tastes. Cheers. Honestly, that's not bad. It's not too different than the cinnamon sugar one. I mean, it's still basically sugar, but it did absorb a little bit of the glaze, so it is slightly softer. I think if I had made the glaze ahead of time and then dipped them in right after they'd finished cooling, and when I first took them out and put them on the plate and the paper towel absorbed all the oil, if I would have taken them while they were still hot and dunked them in it, I think it would have absorbed more and maybe kept them a little bit softer. But overall, it's not bad. I mean, you can see it's maybe got a little bit of coating of frosting on there, or icing on there, whatever you want to call it, glaze. This one's definitely softer than the cinnamon sugar one and the plain one that I ate earlier, but still has that nice little bit of a crunch texture. So originally, like I said, I could have made these into normal donuts and cut a little circle out of the center. I made these this way because I was originally going to try to fill them with something like a cream or a jam or something. I'm not real big on jelly filled, so it probably would have been like a cream or a custard or something. But I didn't have the stuff I needed for that. That's why I looked up how to glaze them. But then as I was looking for recipes on how to glaze them, I saw someone make the cinnamon sugar twists, which are one of my favorite donuts. Not my favorite, but one of them. And then after I started cooking these, I was like, you know, these really look like the Chinese donuts that you get, like if you go to a Chinese buffet or order Chinese takeout and you get an order of Chinese donuts. This is what they were kind of looking like, especially once they puffed up, and that's something I always wanted to learn how to make. And those are usually just lightly dusted in cinnamon and sugar, which is why I did the cinnamon sugar topping, which I also got from the recipe that I got the twist from. But I still wanted to try the glaze. It's not quite like a Krispy Kreme glaze. It's not where it's like coated onto it and still drippy off of it. If I had had proper icing sugar or powdered sugar, it probably would have. But since I was basically just grinding up granulated sugar to make powdered sugar, it didn't quite take to a glazing like it should have. Again, I don't know if that would have changed if I would have cooked it for a little bit first, but overall, like I said, it didn't turn out bad. These are nice and soft, got a nice sugary texture to them, and surprisingly, these ones actually taste a bit more like the Chinese donuts that I order or get at the buffet than the cinnamon sugar ones do, and these ones don't even have any cinnamon in them. So yeah, overall this was a successful experiment. I guess they're not traditional donuts, but if you want some donuts, try them. I probably would have liked to have had these when they were still warm. These have been sitting for close to 20, almost 30 minutes because I did up all the dishes and cleaned up the kitchen and stuff before I sat down here to eat these. And then I took like a 10-minute break because my back is bothering me today. But yeah, if I would have tried them when they were still warm like I did that first one, they probably still would have been good. But you gotta let the icing sit for a little bit. I mean, these bottom ones, there's still quite a bit of icing in the bottom of the plate. So the bottom ones might still have a nice coating of icing on them. But it basically just ran right off all the top ones. You can see where it was though because they're still kind of wet. But yeah, there you have it. First attempt at homemade donuts, and I think I did a damn good job. Wasn't quite the donuts I was planning on, but they turned out pretty good. Like I said, if you got a filling tube thing and you want to try filling these with something, go for it. That's why I didn't punch the hole in the middle. You could easily pump something into that. So that's it for today. I gotta go find something to put these in, and I think I still got one more dish to clean up in the kitchen, so I'm gonna go do that. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. If you make donuts and you follow this recipe and you want to send me pictures, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever's up there or down there in the description. If you got some suggestions for a future recipe or how I can improve this recipe, comments down below. Also, remember to click that little bell up there in the corner because apparently YouTube changed how their subscriptions thing works. You can't just subscribe to me anymore and then find out that I posted a new video. You actually have to click on that little bell and check the box that says I want to receive notifications when there's a new video posted to this channel, and then it'll start telling you when I post something new. What was wrong with the old way? I don't know, but I mean, part of me can kind of see why it's there, but part of me is like, you know, what was wrong with the old system? But that's a topic for a different day. So again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Links are in the description. Until next time, get cooking.